She was born in a world that never expected a woman to change the course of history. On November 19, 1828, in the sacred city of Varanasi, a girl named Manikarnika took her first breath. Her father, Maropantambe, was a Brahmin and a court advisor. Her mother, Bhagirathi Sapra, passed away when Manikarnika was still a child. The loss was heavy, but it forged a quiet fire in the young girl. Unlike most girls of her time, Manikarnika, or Manu, as she was fondly called, didn't grow up in seclusion. She learned to ride horses, wield swords, and fire guns. She was also educated in Sanskrit, Marathi, and religious scriptures, traits uncommon for girls in 19th century India. Manikarnika was not just spirited. She was trained, disciplined, and curious. After the death of her mother, Manikarnika and her father moved to Bithur, near Kanpur. There, her father served as a court official in the household of Peshwa Baji Rao II, the exiled Maratha leader. It was here that Manu grew up among the sons of the Peshwa, including Nana Sahib and Tatya Tope, future figures in the 1857 uprising. Together, they practiced swordplay, horsemanship, and martial arts. Even as a child, Manu showed signs of fierce independence. When asked what kind of woman she wanted to become, she replied, "Main apni Jhansi nahi dungi." I will not give up my Jhansi. These words, years later, would become a rallying cry of resistance. In 1842, at the age of 14, Manikarnika was married to Maharaja Gangadhar Ranawalkar, the ruler of Jhansi, a princely state in northern India. With the wedding, Manu became Rani Lakshmibai. Life in the palace was a stark contrast to her childhood in Bithur. She was now a queen, expected to follow the decorum of royalty, manage courtly affairs, and bear an heir. But Lakshmibai did not abandon her warrior spirit. She continued her training and remained deeply engaged with matters of state. Gangadhar Rao was an educated and cultured man, and he respected his young wife's intellect and strength. Despite their efforts, the royal couple remained childless for years. Then in 1851, they had a son, only for tragedy to strike. The infant died after just 4 months. The loss devastated the Maharaja. In 1853, sensing his end was near, Gangadhar Rao adopted a distant relative's child and named him Damodar Rao, hoping to secure Jhansi's future. He wrote to the British East India Company, requesting they recognize the adoption and allow Damodar to inherit the throne. But the British had other plans. Later that same year, Maharaja Gangadhar Rao died, leaving the 24-year-old Lakshmibai a widow, and the regent mother to a disputed heir. According to Hindu tradition, she was expected to lead a life of quiet mourning. But Lakshmibai refused to fade into the shadows. When Lord Dalhousie, Governor-General of India, invoked the Doctrine of Lapse, rejecting Damodar Rao's claim and annexing Jhansi, Lakshmibai's reply was calm but resolute. "I will not give up my Jhansi." The young widow had now become a queen not just by title, but in spirit, and history had just found one of its fiercest defenders. In the mid-19th century, the British East India Company ruled much of India through force, diplomacy, and legal manipulation. One of their most controversial policies was the Doctrine of Lapse, introduced by Governor-General Lord Dalhousie. According to this policy, if a ruler of a princely state died without a biological male heir, the British would not recognize an adopted successor, and instead, the kingdom would be annexed into British territory. It was a direct violation of long-standing Indian traditions, where adoption was a legally valid method of succession. Dalhousie justified it as a measure to ensure good governance. But to Indian rulers, it was a slow, calculated theft of sovereignty. In 1853, Maharaja Gangadhar Rao of Jhansi died. Before his death, he had adopted a boy named Damodar Rao, hoping the British would honor the adoption and allow the child to succeed him. He even submitted a formal letter requesting the British to acknowledge Damodar as heir. But the British East India Company refused. They invoked the Doctrine of Lapse, rejected the adoption, and announced that Jhansi would be annexed. To Lakshmibai, now a 24-year-old widow, this was not just an insult, it was an act of aggression. Rani Lakshmibai didn't accept the decision quietly. She wrote to British officials in Calcutta and London, pleading her case, not with anger, but with clarity and reason. She argued that Damodar Rao was the legitimate heir, and that Jhansi should remain independent under his rule, with her as regent. The British remained unmoved. In 1854, they officially annexed Jhansi, offering Lakshmibai a pension of 60,000 Indian rupees a year, ordering her to vacate the royal palace. She refused to leave, though stripped of her title. Lakshmibai remained in the palace and began quietly rebuilding her support. For the next few years, Lakshmibai played a dangerous game. Publicly, she did not provoke the British. She continued to live under their supervision, received her pension, and avoided open conflict. But privately, she was preparing. She maintained a small but loyal military force, kept close ties with Maratha loyalists, and strengthened her relationship with the local population. She oversaw daily affairs in Jhansi, often more effectively than the British administrators themselves. She was not waiting passively. She was waiting for the right moment. In May 1857, rebellion exploded in Meerut. Indian soldiers in the British Army, known as sepoys, rose up in revolt, outraged by years of mistreatment, discrimination, and the final insult: cartridges rumored to be greased with cow and pig fat. This was not just a mutiny. It became a national uprising. The revolt quickly spread to Delhi, Kanpur, Lucknow, and beyond. By June 1857, the fires of rebellion reached Jhansi. British officials, fearing the growing unrest, took shelter inside the Jhansi fort. Rebel sepoys, now uncontrolled and enraged, stormed the compound. In the chaos, dozens of British civilians were killed, including women and children. Rani Lakshmibai was not present during the massacre, and many believe she tried to prevent the violence. But in the fog of rebellion, rumors and fear ran faster than truth. The British later accused her of complicity, though no evidence was ever found. Whether she was involved or not, the British now saw her as an enemy of the empire. Lakshmibai knew what was coming. She also knew the people of Jhansi still saw her as their queen. With British control shattered, the people turned to Lakshmibai for leadership. They pleaded with her to restore order, protect the city, and lead. She accepted. Lakshmibai took charge of Jhansi's administration, raised local militias, organized taxes, and fortified the city. She re-established governance not for glory, but to preserve her people's dignity and independence. It was no longer just about succession. It was about resistance. The British would return. That much was certain. But this time, they would not face a courtly widow. They would face a warrior queen. By late 1857, Lakshmibai was no longer just regent. She was the de facto ruler of Jhansi, and she knew the British would return. She began training a new army. Men, women, and even children were recruited and taught how to fight. She personally supervised weapons training and battle drills. Swords were sharpened, muskets prepared, and forts reinforced. Her closest allies included Jalkaribai, a courageous woman warrior who would become her decoy in battle, and generals like Rao Sahib and Tatya Tope, veterans of the Maratha resistance. Lakshmibai's court became a war room. In March 1858, the British returned, led by Sir Hugh Rose, a battle-hardened general. A British force of nearly 2,500 soldiers marched toward Jhansi. The siege began with artillery bombardment, day and night. Cannonballs rained down on the fort. The defenders, outnumbered and under pressure, held their ground. Inside, Rani Lakshmibai moved between her soldiers, encouraging them, fighting beside them, refusing to leave the ramparts. For 2 weeks, Jhansi withstood everything the British threw at it, but the walls began to crumble. On April 3, 1858, British forces breached the city walls. Fierce street-to-street fighting broke out. Thousands were killed, civilians and soldiers alike. The British made no distinction. Blood flowed through the streets of Jhansi. Refusing to be captured, Lakshmibai disguised herself in a soldier's uniform, tied her young son to her back, and escaped on horseback through a hidden gate under cover of night. Jalkaribai, her trusted warrior, dressed as the queen and led a decoy attack to confuse the British. buying her precious time. Jhansi had fallen, but Lakshmibai had not. Lakshmibai headed toward Kalpi, where rebel leaders like Tatya Tope regrouped. Though exhausted, she continued to rally troops and support. Villagers fed her, sheltered her, and hailed her as Durga incarnate, the goddess of war. She and Tatya Tope launched counterattacks, attempting to regain territory. They fought at Kalpi, but were again defeated by the better-equipped British army. Yet Lakshmibai would not surrender. She now set her sights on Gwalior, a strategic city with a strong fort and deep political divisions. In June 1858, rebel forces led by Lakshmibai and Tatya Tope took control of Gwalior, declaring it free of British rule. It was a symbolic victory. She now held a major fortress, controlled central India, and gave renewed hope to the rebellion. But it was short-lived. The British regrouped quickly. Sir Hugh Rose led a massive offensive to retake Gwalior. Lakshmibai prepared for one final stand. On June 17, 1858, British and Indian rebel forces clashed at Kotaki Sarai, near Gwalior. Lakshmibai, dressed in full armor, sword in hand, led her troops from the front. British officers later described her as the best and bravest of all the rebel leaders. During the heat of battle, she was mortally wounded by a British soldier. Rather than risk her body being desecrated, her aides carried her away and cremated her under a tree, away from the battlefield. She was just 29 years old. The British retook Gwalior. The 1857 rebellion soon collapsed, crushed by British reinforcements and superior firepower. Lakshmibai's death marked the symbolic end of large-scale resistance. But her legend had just begun. Even British generals admired her. Hugh Rose would later write, "She was the bravest and best military leader of the rebel army." To Indians, she was more than that. She was a martyr, a symbol of defiance, a national hero. Rani Lakshmibai became a legend almost instantly. Folk songs, poems, and stories spread across India, keeping her memory alive in the hearts of the people. Children learned her name before they could read. Rebels invoked her spirit long after her death. The famous poem by Subhadra Kumari Chauhan would immortalize her. Kub Lady Mardani, Wo to Jhansi Wali Rani T. She fought valiantly like a man. She was the Queen of Jhansi. Lakshmibai was more than just a warrior. She was a visionary leader, a mother, and a symbol of unity in a fragmented land. She challenged not only colonial power, but the very idea that women must remain passive. In a time when most Indian rulers submitted, she chose to fight and die for honor. Today, her statue stands tall in Jhansi, sword raised, reins clenched, eyes fierce. Her life is taught in every Indian classroom. Her courage has inspired revolutionaries, freedom fighters, and ordinary citizens for over 160 years. Rani Lakshmibai's story is not just history, it is heritage. It reminds us that courage knows no age, no gender, and no defeat. She rode into battle not just to save a kingdom, but to defend the idea that India would not kneel forever. The Queen of Jhansi may have died in 1858, but her spirit rides on.